Hi, and welcome to the Diablo podcast, your home for Diablo diehards, tryhards, casual, and hardcore alike. I am your host, Xanth, and today I am back together with my lovely triumvirate that forms this podcast. We've got Nineball
Oh, hi.
and
Taking it
Nerdwords.
back.
Hello.
Uh, it's good to see everybody. It's good to be back. Real life is getting in the way of things for some of you. Not this guy. I don't have a life.
Just Ted.
So it's good to see you. Good to see you both. We got a lot to talk about. So the focus for today is to talk about season 5, which is coming up next week. For you, Leviathan, it is the 1st of August. You're not even listening. You're out in Paris having a good time. Live it up, man. But maybe on the flight home. Uh, I promise I will do other listener specific shout outs at some point. Post in the comments and we'll get things going. But for you, Leviathan, again, August 1st, enjoy the show. But we're going to talk about season 5, talk about our hopes, our dreams, and, we have 2 months. We have 2 months, a little truncated schedule for this one. Um, and then we have an expansion. So before we get into it, I didn't get a chance to talk about this last time because it would have felt wrong. Last podcast, we had Leviathan on. We got to talk all about the Spiritborn, and it would have been weird to stop and be like, oh, yeah, I did something cool too. Because he is making a class. I just got to go somewhere and talk about his job, right? Uh, that's that's not nearly as exciting. But 2 weeks ago, I was lucky enough to be flown out to San Francisco and to take a small part in the events that were happening around the Spiritborn reveal. I was able to join the Kind of Funny crew, react to the Spiritborn reveal, and then we got to hang out and interview Rod Ferguson, and then we got to play Diablo with Rod Ferguson. Now, I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time talking about that. You can go watch those videos, guys. Pump those numbers up. Get me back out there so we can do it again. But I have to say, it was an amazing experience. Um, I'm keenly aware of our amateur production here, fellas. There was a fog machine.
I mean, they had a news desk.
Yeah,
True.
they've got a desk. It is not a basement. There were television screen. It was a very professional production. I was super nervous, but it was a phenomenal time. And Rod Ferguson, awesome dude. I think he has, and I think I might have shared, he's got more level 100 characters than I do. This is a guy who clearly plays his own game and enjoys it, and just a nice guy, just a nice dude. Um, doesn't mean that we won't critique Diablo. It doesn't mean that we become shills because of something like this. But it was a real treat to kind of do that. And summarizing, there were a few things I learned. But if you didn't watch it, now I'll recap. At the moment, there are no plans to allow me to have a different colored bear or to turn into an owl bear or anything like that. No individual skill cosmetics. That's really what I needed. And maybe I planted a seed. Maybe I planted a seed where Rod's like, you know what, that Xanth guy might have had some good thoughts. Might have had some good ideas. Maybe we do need to do that. Chances are not. So Nimble, we talked about it last week, but you weren't here. What was your reaction to the new class?
I believe the most visceral thought that I had of like the new class reveal was the Creepy Crawlers theme song, and I do have to give a shout out to Greg for when I typed that in chat while you guys were doing your like live reacts. He didn't miss a beat and immediately started singing the commercial. So
That's
yeah,
amazing.
that's it. I mean, insert human centipede jokes here. I thought it was actually pretty awesome, and like Eagle Centipede all the way. That's my take.
Eagle looks awesome.
Yeah, is Gorilla Centipede the prequel to Human Centipede? I
Got to
don't. There
start
was I
somewhere.
had yeah, as
The
you could
prequel.
see, I had no actual coherent thoughts during that entire preview stream for the new class. But I mean, it looks absolutely awesome. It does have me excited to go through and maybe try it out, but it's at the end of the day, it's not a necromancer, so you know, it is what it is.
It's possible you might enjoy something else along the way,
No,
but
sorry, meat and potatoes.
that's true. Why would anybody have anything else? I get it. Um, it's a nice little segue, though. In between our ability to choose or not to choose or not choose to play a Spiritborn, we're going to have one last season with just the 5 classes, and it's short. It is 2 months. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Everybody did get a chance to do a little bit of PTR.
Yeah, a little bit.
No 9-ball. That's
Oh,
okay.
no.
That was also it was when Shadow of the Erd Tree dropped, so I didn't do too much of it anyway. But we've at least seen enough of it where this season feels like there aren't as many surprises, despite there being a few along the way. There's been some big changes since the PTR, which is exciting. It's exciting to kind of see what's going to happen. Um, what are your thoughts with this 2 months? Like, how are you going to approach this season before we dig into it? Because it is so different than any that we've seen before. Because this is the first season that we know what's coming after, right? We don't know what season 6 actually is, but we know what it's going to entail. Do you approach a 2-month season after a great season 4 differently than what you would normally if there wasn't an expansion right on the horizon?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I will for sure. I'm gonna definitely jump in and play. I'm definitely gonna start Sorceress like I usually do. I probably won't do an alt. I normally have at least another character I get to 100 as well. I finally have all the characters to 100 at this point, so I don't feel the need to do that as much. And honestly, my goal is to probably spend the first like month and a half just kind of grinding the season, trying to min max gear and have fun with it that way, and really dive into the Infernal Hordes and push the pit and things like that. But about a week and a half, 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the expansion comes out, I really want to do another run through the story, and kind of have a character that's like fresh out of the story, because I want to see what the expansion plays like for a fresh, like, okay, like if I just finish the game and I just leave that character and just park them, what does the expansion feel like for that character versus my characters that are like super juiced? So I was going to do that probably before the expansion drops. So I'll probably spend a little time going back and doing Eternal Realm stuff, just to run through the side quests again, run through the main quests again, make sure I'm fresh on all the different details and things that are happening, so I can catch little story moments in the expansion when they pop up. That's kind of my mission.
I honestly probably won't be approaching it all that much differently, because 2 months is generally where I've puttered out, and I've gone on to other things. So this one will probably just be somewhere around the same, going through playing, and then I've got a little vacation at the beginning of October, right before the expansion drops. So I have some time to like reset everything in order to go through and get into it. But yeah, no. My particular like level of engagement with the game, this probably fits a lot better. Just because I'll be getting the new thing just as I get bored with the old thing.
That's fair. I'm going to do something completely different, gentlemen. I'm going to play
You're gonna
softcore
play
this whole
Sorceress.
season.
Oh,
Ooh.
that's romantic. We can play
Yeah,
together.
we can actually play together.
We can. I figured with 2 months, normally with a hardcore season, for me, there's a setback along the way, and it stretches a season where I'm still playing now. I'm only playing right now because I'm grinding all my renown for softcore, so I don't have to do that as well, because that's not something I want to bake into season 2 or season 5, I should say. Um, but yeah, my intention is to be able to dive in, play softcore, I want to clean up the last achievement that I really have, which is Uber Lilith, and then kind of take it easy and prep for what the expansion is going to bring to us. Um, and in other words, we did get to play a little bit. You got to level me up,
I
a
did.
little
Yeah.
softcore character, which came in handy. So I did a kind of funny stream last week, and we knocked off Greg's hardcore 50. And then there was time left over, and I was able to switch over to my softcore character and play a little bit. So it worked out really well.
Nice.
So thank you. That was
Yeah, for sure.
beneficial.
It was
But
quick. We did it quick. We did
I,
quick work.
it was super quick. But
I
this
could
this
definitely
season will feel
sympathize
wrong.
with you on that one, because that's actually one of the, for the majority of Diablo 3 I played hardcore. Vast majority of Diablo 3 I played hardcore, but when the real life video game balance, started to go more in the real life side of things. Like, depending upon how far I'd gotten into like the season, like death and losing certain gear, like if my only primal, I lost on my character, that was probably it. Like that was like, okay, I had fun. My season is now over, type thing, because I don't have enough time to get back and try to refarm some of that perfect gear, trying to augment, re-augment the gear and stuff like that I had just lost, and that was when I had switched over to softcore. So I could definitely see how the shorter amount of time, like one setback and you're done, to switch over to the softcore.
Yeah, because I would like to experience all the season has to offer, and there hasn't been a season yet that I haven't been able to do that. But I fear with 2 months, and I go back to school, and it might be a little tight. So I prefer to not miss out, and I'm excited for what it's going to bring. Which is again, here we are, beautiful transition, boys. Season 5. So we're going in to the season of the Infernal Hordes, and I'm happy to see the of the seasons are coming back. Season of Loot Reborn, it doesn't have the same je ne sais pas, right? I need the of the. I need it of the season, of the malignant, of the of the
Construct.
construct. Yep, these are all bangers right there. Of the malignant, of the construct. Season of blood, of the blood. Better. That was better already. If it was of the blood or of the vampire, probably even better. Well, we're back. Season of the of the Infernal Horde. Um, and as we saw today, so today we did get our campfire chat. There's been some tweaks. I didn't dislike the mode when I played it initially on the PTR. It wasn't enough to really grab me. There have been some changes since then, where it seems to be a little bit faster, a little bit more reactive. The rewards seem to be better, and thus the likelihood of engaging with it seems higher. But I'm on the low end here. I'm not going to be blasting as far as some of you. So Nerdbirds, tell me, is this mode better now with the changes?
Um, I mean, yeah. I mean, they seem to keep improving the seasons in general every season, right? Like they're learning from the different, like they did I think the bounty board, I think in season 2 or whatever it wasn't called a bounty board, but essentially like a little board that you leveled up through, and they've kind of continued to evolve that, and they've made some big changes with that with the new season as well. There's 2 quest lines from what I understood from today's stream. There's the quest line if you were on the PTR that you could play through that, which, by the way, was amazing, and I'm very excited for everyone, including Nineball, to make sure that they play through that because it's very cool. I think it's very cool. But there's another like seasonal, like that's going to be for both Eternal and seasonal because the Infernal Hordes is coming into Eternal as well. So then they still included like a seasonal specific quest line, which I'm also intrigued by. The theme in general ties directly into stuff that's going to happen inevitably in October. So really excited about that stuff. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely excited for it. I honestly, I think it's also, while the last season was the Loot Reborn season, this is really like turning that knob up a little bit more, because there's a significant amount of tuning and dialing and changes, aspect changes, the uniques being reworked. Like, I mean, it feels like there's as much like up in the air right now as there was going into the Loot Reborn season 2. So it's really cool, and yeah, I mean, they continue to improve upon it, and the feedback seems great. I'm just excited to get my hands on it.
Nine ball.
Well, I mean, I didn't really play the PTR, so I can't really compare contrast.
But maybe that's a nice perspective. You haven't touched it at all. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts for them?
I mean, it definitely is going through, just as what Nerdword says. It seems that it's building a lot upon the things that I am most interested in. As I've said in a previous podcast, that the whole kind of roguelike aspect of the Infernal Hordes doesn't really like. It's more of a off-putting for me than anything else. So the thing that I'm more interested in is like the just as what like Loot Reborn did for itemization in general. This one seems to be like Season of the Uniques. There's a lot of focus on the rebalancing of the uniques, really trying to fit them into the places of the items, how it fits in the new reworked itemization. They buffed Penitent Greaves. Or sorry, Greaves of the Empty Tomb. It's just it looks pretty interesting. It's pretty cool. Despite some like Necromancer nerfs, but yeah, liking what I'm seeing.
So I think there's a nice little segue. We said we would get to it, and we find it organically, let's get there. We all main a different class. How do you feel about your class going into season 5 by comparison to season 4? So I'll start. Right, I predominantly play a druid. This season's been fine. The wind shear build has been all right. There were some other builds in there that like Storm Slide and what have you that I thought were fun, but I wasn't grabbed as much this season with what the Druid had to offer because it was very much akin to what the last season was. Druid didn't really change that much. I'm very excited for season 5. The companion build is not the ideal version for what I would want, but it's a hell of a lot more playable than what it is currently. So that's a whole new play style. That's a whole new way to play a class that I've already been playing for over a year. So I'm pretty excited for the Druid going forward. There's, some changes to a few uniques. Let's see how that shakes out. Maybe there's a different thing in there that somebody who's far better at this will discover. I feel more optimistic about a Druid for next season than I did in season 4, despite enjoying it. I want to stress, like I still enjoyed it. I still played 2 of them to 100 and killed them. But I think I'm going to have a better time in season 5.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited. I'm really excited. The sort changes, there's a lot of them. How they land, we'll have to see once we get our hands on it. It seems like they're turning some knobs up pretty drastically high. So I anticipate some reversions as we get into the middle of the season, because some of them are kind of crazy. Some of the unique changes are awesome. I mean, like Frozen Orb's getting a huge buff through Fractured Winterglass. You've got some skill changes, some passive changes, which are nice. It looks like they're putting some intentional work into the ultimate passives for the Sork, and they've all been kind of meh, because they like very niche but broken and work, like things that were meant for fire damage working for all damage, things like that, where like they were good because they were broken, so they worked. Then they fix them, so now it looks like they're trying to go back and like tweak and kind of make this a little bit better now. There's been some significant changes to Ice Spike. I mean, the Blue Rose is going to give Ice Spikes the ability to proc twice, so a chance to double not just the damage but also the freeze and chill effects that it has. So in other words, the stun locking, which is really nice. Don't know how that's going to play out, but that sounds like it could be really good. Yeah, there's a lot. There's so many changes. It's hard to go, ooh, that one thing. I went in originally really wanted to play the Exio Conduit pants, like the Chain Lightning pants, because that sounded really awesome. And then they did some huge buffs to Chain Lightning, which is great. But they also did some tweaks to Frozen Orb and some other skills that I'm really excited. Fireball looks awesome. And I enjoyed playing a Fireball build in the Helltide already. With the changes now, is this now going to be like it looks like it's gonna be way better. So that's awesome. And they also nerfed this super cheesy infinite flame shield to make you invincible forever. Which, while it was strong for a sorcerer, it felt really just kind of cheap, and I didn't like that play loop at all. So yeah, I'm really excited. It's hard to know what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to kind of let the drops come as they may, and see what ends up kind of pushing the ranks as best it can, I guess. But yeah, I honestly, for the first time in a long time, I have no idea what kind of sorcerer I'm going to play. I'm just going to see what happens. But very excited for sure.
Yeah. I mean, so there's God, like Macro Bio Boy has like an hour-long video talking about like necromancer changes and stuff like that. And you know, it looks as if some of the things that made necromancer work have been nerfed, but they've also like changed some of the like core scaling of the class, as well as like the new increases like the lucky hit chances. We'll have to see where things go through and settle. I am interested for the fact that it looks like my personal favorite, Sever, is getting some bonuses, is getting pushed up a little bit. So I'm interested going through and checking that out, seeing how that plays. But all in all, I guess it's like one of those ones with due to the nature of the changes of the necromancer and how some of its like compensation is like changing to like we scale 1% damage off of 8 intellect as opposed to 10, and like that is not something that was like tested on the PTR. So you're going to be like 40, 60 hours, 80 hours into the game before you really realize where you're going to settle for like the end game and scaling, because you actually do have to like push the class, get your tempers, get the master working up there in order to like actually have those stats like really push to see, does this make up for the nerfs, the blighted aspect, because like Shadow Blight doesn't mean anything to Sever. Are you playing it without Shadow Blight? Is there some other alternative? You just playing it like Bone Spear, but you're shadow damage instead. So, that will be interested in going through and seeing. I like some of the core functionality changes that they're making for Blood. Although that's probably my least favorite build that I've played out of the Necromancers so far. Though they've addressed a lot of the core issues that it had with like just creating the new aspect that you get essence on the blood surge drain. Makes it so that way that build all of a sudden seems a lot more interesting in order to go through, as opposed you don't have to like have perfect gear, in order to have the infinitely sustainable resource generation in order to like really push that build. But then at the same time, are we just like pushing builds to the point where we just have infinite resources, especially with like the Helm of Lucian, all of this stuff? Are we just kind of getting to the point where if you have to have a generator, you're doing it wrong, and then what's the point of a generator? But those are further long-reaching questions.
There's a lot to unpack there, Nineball.
Yeah.
Let's start with the commonality between all of them, which is the distribution of power on main stat, right? This deals with the class that's not represented, as always, on this podcast, Barbarian.
Mm.
One of the bigger things about this patch, and we talked about it pre-show, is trying to address the Barbarian problem. And how, and they talked about it today on the Fireside Chat, the Barbarian is well designed. It's doing real well. And by comparison, other classes feel like they can't keep up. What do you do? And I thought it was a nice explanation today of like, we don't want to take away what makes this class work. We don't want to just give everybody multiple weapon slots, or we don't want to take theirs away. How do we address it? So, one of the ways, amongst others, was to try and lift everybody up. So, we as druids and sorcerers and necromancers are going to get a little bit more powerful with every main stat. And I think it'll be interesting to see how that works. Is that enough to raise the ceiling or to raise all the other classes up to where a barbarian is?
It should be noted they also did buff rogues.
Sure.
Yeah.
They're there too.
Yeah.
We'll talk about them some other day. This is a this is a druid, sorcerer, necromancer, and barbarian conversation. Rogues, they're doing okay. Like they don't need this. We need to talk crap about barbarians and push for our classes to be more powerful. They did say they've been hearing a lot of that it should happen. And I think it's right here. It is this podcast. Um, do you think it'll be enough to quell the call for a barbarian culling? Ooh. Quell the call for a barbarian culling. Quell the call for a barbarian culling. Come on. That's
It's good.
beautiful,
It's good.
right?
You're
Sure.
definitely a teacher.
That's right
Yeah.
off the dome.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we're guessing, right? Which is kind of part of it, but it's just. I mean, Nine, you mentioned it a little bit before the podcast. It's just like we can sit here and talk about it and act like it's going to, but like we've talked about it before. We've had several seasons where there's been these big changes, like when they nerfed the hell out of Hammer the Ancients and various other things, fixed bugs that were broken. I think barbs are going to be fine. We'll see, and if they're not fine, the Diablo team has proven that they're going to make adjustments, right? So I think that the thing that gives me the most hope about all of this stuff is that the team has been very communicative about this stuff. They've delivered on their end and their promises to continue to give us updates before these patch notes release, before the seasons launch and all that stuff. Their communication has been amazing. It's been really really good.
Yeah.
We're a year into the game now, over a year into the game now, a year and a month, just about, and I mean they've really killed it. And where the game is now versus where it launched at is basically a completely different game, especially from an itemization standpoint and all that stuff. So I think barbs will be fine, and if they're not, I believe that they will make quick adjustments, because there will be a very vocal group. There's a lot of barbarians that play this game. There's a lot of people that love playing barbarian. I mean, I'm a Sorc main, but I like playing barb too. I like playing all the classes. They're all fun, except for druids. They smell bad, but I'm just kidding. Joke. I have a druid.
And
I like druids too.
don't forget the fleas.
Yeah, the fleas as well too. I was more concerned about the
Just
fleas.
littered with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they'll be okay. I think barbs will be okay.
I think that is definitely what Nerdwords. One of the things that you mentioned there is definitely the most important takeaway is that the developers are aware. It's something that it's on their radar. One, barbs being overpowered, and two, not necessarily wanting to nerf barbs, but try and bring the other classes up to that level. I found it funny that they were going through and they were discussing, it's like, yeah, barbs like kind of have two class mechanics and they're really overpowered, so we're going to try and buff the other classes class mechanics, and we're going to use the Book of the Dead as an example. And it was like, isn't the Necromancers one of the ones that's towards the bottom? That's kind of like needing the buffs. And it was just
So this is the part of the podcast where I get to complain about the druids. Thanks for leading in there. The druids class system.
Yes, we know spirit boons, blah blah blah. You have to do a stronghold.
How does it feel? By the way, how does it feel that the Spiritborn has like the better version of the druid class mechanic?
Literally,
it's like literally it's like just better. It's the same vibe, but just way better.
Well, and Leviathan talked about it last week, where he was saying
druids don't have centipedes. That's therefore, ergo,
we've got a poison creeper, which is
not the same,
not as cool.
No,
but like Leviathan was.
Poison creepers don't have a theme song from the 90s. I'm sorry.
That's true.
Creepy crawlers. Come on.
But like Leviathan was saying last week, the like Tempest Roar is kind of like a blueprint for what the Spiritborn does, of like adding and converting one skill to another, which is awesome. It would just be really cool if it was a druid thing. You've got all these spirits. What did a druid in Diablo 2 have? It had the spirit of the oak. It had the werewolf. Like, it had them. And then it lost them. And that would be cool. But that's okay. They'll figure it out. It'll be
I
better.
mean, I feel your pain. My favorite way to play a necromancer in Diablo 2 was like Poison Nova, even though it was
Mm.
absolute garbage. And then they like don't have poison as a elemental type anymore. So
I could talk for hours and hours and hours about how Blizzard has completely fucked teleport since Diablo 2. Anyway.
I mean, though it deserved it.
No, it didn't.
Honest.
Shut up.
Let's be honest.
No, it
Yeah.
didn't.
But before Xanth interrupted me complaining about barbarians,
It's true. I'm
in
sorry.
order
I
to
should
complain
never
about
stop
druids,
that. I should never stop
yeah.
that.
Yeah. So my knee jerk, no math, completely feelings take on the barbarian is I think that they're still gonna end up winning the season regardless. And it's a lot to do with what Blizzard was going through and saying. Just those 2 additional weapon slots, the stats, as well as like I think any class would kill to just have like two-handed weapon aspects, regardless of even having the stats attached to them, of just being able to have that extra 100% bonus on a second aspect is one of the things that like really pushes it. And then you start adding in the stats, the 2 additional aspects, and then all the tempers to go along with it. And then they still have expertise, in addition to all of that. So it's one of those things that barbarians will probably really feel it the first week, maybe 2, because the other classes all now scale faster. The advantage that the barbarian has is extremely gear dependent, tempering dependent, masterwork dependent. Having to go through and find those 16 out of 16 aspects and such. The barbarian is going to have to do more work than most of the other classes in order to get like their builds online, their overpoweredness and such. But when they do, I believe that they are still going to just go past and eclipse everything else. If we look at the pit as an example, the only thing that could compete with the barbarian neck and neck was a class that was immortal, could not die, was just health was irrelevant, and they just didn't have to worry about dying or anything like that. And that was the only thing that was able to compete with the barbarian. This like not even this far into the season, like halfway through the season. So despite the nerfs and stuff like that, I think it's really going to make it is just it's going to take longer for the barbarian in order to go through and reach that Super Saiyan level 2 status in order to actually like go through and just speed roll content. They start with like the weighted trading clothes, and then they just go Rock Lee and take off the weights once they got the decent level of gearing.
I think that's fair and logical. You have said it every single season. You don't bet against
Always bet on Barb.
Yeah.
Always bet on Barb.
I would predict that Rob is a barbarian genius. He will have it in the upper echelon, and then he'll find another build that is also side by side. And that's great, right? But maybe, hopefully, up on that podium, we do see a druid build. We see a few sorcerer builds, a necro build, right?
Yeah, it's definitely not to say that the gap isn't going to be closer, but I feel the barbarian is definitely still going to be ahead. But it probably is not going to be as far ahead as it has been the last couple of seasons.
Right. And in our interview with Rod, that was something that came up about balance. Like I had asked a question about like how do you go about balancing when you add in a 6 class? But he did make mention that the pit seems to be this major tool that they are using to measure classes against one another. It seems to be a better barometer as opposed to the actual leaderboards that we have, because that's the content is almost like you've leveled well past it. Now it's just about speed.
Mm-hmm.
But the pit,
and you don't have as many people competing in it either, A lot of people just pretend that it doesn't exist.
Yeah, it it's more of a tangent right now, but it's something I'd like to see them kind of come back to because it doesn't feel as integrated anymore. It was cool when it landed, but now it's something you sidestep because the rewards are weekly, right? I, do I want to be pushing myself constantly to maybe get something? It's
Yep.
that very much delayed gratification. Um, I don't want to wait that long. I don't want to have to wait and see if maybe I got bumped and I got to come. No, I'm not going to do that. Maybe it'll come back. Maybe we'll get a different cycle on there, but it's interesting to see. So we'll see if we're getting a much more level playing field in the pit with these changes, and I think that'll be an interesting metric. One thing that stood out to me, and we knew it was coming, um, is the new seasonal, not seasonal journey, but the replacement for our Iron Wolves reputation.
Mm-hmm.
I love this system. As a hardcore player, dying a lot, and being able to like have a nice bootstrap to good gear and to getting some nice items, maybe unique that will get my build online. This is amazing. What I heard today that was even more exciting was, hey, you don't have to just do Hell Tides now. You can still do Hell Tides. That's going to do the exact same thing. But when you reach level 50 or 30 or 40, whenever you're going to transition, and you want to go do a few nightmare dungeons to pump up, your glyphs, well, that's going to count towards this as well. Or if you need to go somewhere else and do something, it's all going to work. It's all going to lead to the exact same route. Because there were a few times this season where, like, nightmare dungeon or not, like nightmare dungeons are not what I want to be doing. I'd rather be in Helltide because I'm pushing towards that spark. But I need to level these glyphs. I need to get them up to 15 or whatever it might be. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, great change. Just rewarding you for whatever type of content it is that you want to do instead of forcing you into the one particular type of content. I think it also just works well since there's no like the whole thing with the Infernal Hordes is it doesn't have its own um, like open world activity, to coincide with it, like Season of Blood and Season of the Construct had, and that the updated Hell Tides was effectively it for Season 4. And so just getting those bonuses from doing anything is a nice change. And so it's like something that I had complained about before, that if you wanted to bring back one of those like blood harvest zones or something like that, and it had to compete with the brand new Helltide, like how much better can you make the current Helltide? To try and pull you away from it, that
Well,
then the Helltide has to become.
yeah, yeah, I agree completely. It just makes it to where like it's kind of just now a passive thing that's going to happen, right? It used to be like, oh, I remember last season I started my Necro and I leveled just through the Helltide, mostly because it was faster and fun, but also because I could clear the board and get that resplendent spark at the end of the board, So I think it just makes it now to where I could do that by doing sigils, God forbid, or pit or whatever else I want to do, right? Like if all of that's going to contribute to it, then I can just do what I want to do and it's going to just happen organically. And I think that is a good thing. My only nervousness is that will I even pay attention to it or care? I hope so. I think so because the rewards felt really useful in the last season. I hope it maintains that feel a little bit, but
Yeah.
I would like to see them. This is more of a quality of life thing. Transition that board into all the major cities and not just like one specific city. That way, I can just town portal and go straight to a board somewhere. But that's a small change that honestly we've already had so many quality of life changes that I feel spoiled already. So I don't mind going for that one thing if I got to. But yeah, I mean it seems like a really great change.
One thing that wouldn't be too bad is if we actually had, multiple locations that we could set our town portal to, to default to, whether it be that particular season or Tree Whispers, So that I think that would be like the big quality of life change that I would look to, is having like bindable town portals.
Yeah.
I will say my favorite parts of Path of Exile is being able to have your own, essentially. It's called a hideout. You have a
Player
portal
housing.
to it. Yeah. We have never seen that in a Diablo. It would be really cool, or to have a clan like old school D2. There was a framework where they wanted to do clan housing,
Yeah.
and I thought that was the coolest thing, and it never happened. If we even had that, like a place where you can bind to, you show up, maybe you have a couple vendors there, much like the Tree of Whispers. Like Tree of Whispers is probably my favorite right now because I just have all the things I need within a short uh, area. But having something like that would be ideal. I don't think that's in the pipeline. That's not a rumor. That's a hope and a dream. That eventually that would come in. The downside of any of that is obviously this is a game that's out to make money. They want you to see other players. They want you to see their fancy wings, their sweet cat mounts. If you don't see that, maybe you don't buy it. Now, I will say it's hard to ignore the shop already, but I could get why they would maybe not want to do that. Um, but I think it would be cool. I'd like to see that.
I'll be honest, I still haven't bought anything out of the shop yet. I've come close. I've come close. Not for lack of them being cool. I just think the price is still a little steep. So I just have been chilling, hoping that eventually relaxes at some point.
There's a good, beautiful tangent here. This is another conversation I've been wanting to have. That's why I love you guys. I miss this. So the shop prices. They did say for a while that they were going to tease out like this lower price sets. Like we're going to
Yeah.
target you with some sets at special prices. Um, and I saw it once. I saw it like 6 weeks ago. I got served one set, and I was just like, "Oh, okay, that actually is in a decent price range." I think this was even before we could like pre-order the Spiritborn or pre-order the Vessel of Hatred. So I didn't even have enough platinum at the time, and I wasn't going to buy platinum. Whereas now I'm sitting on a decent amount from the pre-order where I could buy something, and I haven't been served anything to buy yet. There hasn't been anything. I did get, I don't know if you guys did, I did get a random free item the other day. It was like a hammer. I
Huh.
didn't do anything. I just was notified I should go to the shop. It wasn't a
It was.
quest.
It wasn't the anniversary rewards.
Nope, I got those all during the anniversary. This was just a random, hey, here's a hammer. Like, okay, cool, thanks. Thanks, Diablo. I appreciate that. I'll take the free stuff. Unrelated to everything else. It was weird. But aside from that, I haven't had any of those sales pushed at me because if you told me that sweet druid set that looks like a polar bear is half off, I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna push. Please, I'll give you platinum for it. So I'd like to see that. I think you're 100% right. Bring those prices down a little bit, and it'll be so much easier to part with platinum, especially since we earned it over the season anyway.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed.
Yeah,
We
mean
nailed it.
that's honest. Yeah, that's honestly like the really the biggest complaint. There's the people that will always complain about the microtransactions in general. But the people that might want to engage with the system, it's that the prices are just too high. Like you're talking like $28-$30. It's like across the board. And yeah, there's a free item waiting for me here too. There we go. Thanks for
Look
mentioning
at
it.
what did you get?
A scythe
Look at that. So a different item. Why did we get something
of
free? If anybody knows, if you're listening and you're like, oh, I know why. It was because of the X, Y, and Z. Please let us know because here we are. And if you haven't checked, go in and check. Maybe you got something free that you didn't know of. And let us know what you got. We're going to get to the bottom of this mystery. Okay. Uh, let's talk uniques. So in tandem with the Infernal Horde with the new quest line, with the new renown system, or not renown, but whatever we call it. We're getting a revamped uniques. Last season was Loot Reborn, and we're all in love with our legendary items we got to temper, and nobody wanted to play with uniques anymore. They sucked. They're the worst thing possible. So we get another pass at uniques. Let's call it Loot Reborn ish, or Loot Reborn 2.1. 2.1. I think that'll be fine. Just a nice little addendum. We're gonna revamp all the uniques across the board. I assume you did exactly what I did. You're like, okay, I'm gonna find the class that I play, and I'm gonna look at those ones first. What was did anything stand out to you as you jumped into those uniques for your respected class? Nineball?
Yeah, so the Greaves to the empty tomb, the buffs to that is solely because of my feedback and complaining about it on multiple episodes. Absolutely nothing to do with like Macro Bio Boy putting like these hour-long like YouTube videos and giving like paragraphs of feedback directly to the devs. Actually doing the work and having the math. No, it's just a couple of words that I've said few times over the course of the year. I will take full responsibility for those changes. Yeah, I'm done.
I I think you put in the work really, because if you didn't bring it up, how would he have ever heard it? Like, this guy barely plays the class, doesn't
Yeah.
understand Necromancer at all.
Mm-mm.
Um, Honestly, I mean, like, and I don't think anybody even watches his channel. Like, he's got like only 60,000 people. So,
That
like,
boy's gonna come for
Yeah.
y'all's neck.
Uh,
one, obviously, Macro is amazing. I tell him that frequently, and
He's the
shout out to
guy.
shout out to him because he did get that opportunity to go out and be one of the first people to play the Spiritborn and to show it off for the world. Um, and so deserving because he's just a genuinely nice human being. We're trying to get him
mm-hmm.
back. We're trying to get him back on
Be,
the show. He's just busy.
be good people.
Yeah. But also, his feedback is shittier than yours. It's just a fact. You
Yeah.
come out here, you're eloquent, you wear a nice robe. He doesn't even wear his. So that's what the devs are looking for in their feedback. Robe-based feedback.
It, it
RBF.
honestly, it's yeah. I mean, it's like one of those ones. It's like the updates that they went through and they made to the Grease of the Empty Tomb. My complaint was that like when they did the Evan Piercer, it wasn't so much that like the stats on the Evan Piercer were interesting. It's just that its damage proc, is what made it viable, and so it wasn't really buffing Blight. It's just the Evan Piercer proc is what you were buffing, and you didn't care about anything else. This one for the Greaves of the Empty Tomb, you know, the damage that it adds is still going to be negligible, but then everything else about the item is just absolutely better. Increasing the AoE size, giving it a chance to cast twice. Bonus of the Reaper's Pursuit, like up to plus extra 6 extra ranks. So you can actually make the Necromancer move even faster. And then when you evade, it leaves desecrated ground. So now your evade becomes like a pseudo damage skill, and desecrated ground can trigger some other abilities. But yeah, it's pretty nice. There's some, again going back to a Macro Bio Boy video. There are some core functionality issues that Sever doesn't really play with the
Hold, hold,
rest.
hold, hold
Of,
on one second. I got to interrupt.
sure.
You're
Yes.
out there, you're watching Macro Bio Boy's video, but you won't watch and listen to our own podcast?
Yes.
It's not a ringing endorsement. Um, Although I will point out, for the first time, it's been and we've been doing this for almost 2 years now, guys. My mom has started to listen to the show, so we got her.
Aw, hi mom. That's
We,
adorable.
we got her. Um, Anyways, all right, Nabal, you may continue.
That Where was I? Yeah, so like the Sever just doesn't really work with the rest of everything because everything else is like damage over time bonuses, and this is just direct damage. Doesn't doesn't work at all with Shadow Blight and actually going through proccing that, getting blighted and things like that. And so you kind of just play it as its own and ignore the mechanics of how you'd play any other shadow-based necromancer build. So there's that, but at least hey, that singular item is making it a hell of a lot more competitive in terms of necromancer builds than it was previously. So I'm excited for that.
I think, and I'll give you a chance to jump in here, Nerdbirds. I think that the biggest downside of this season is like, as you were talking about, I'm like, I would really like to play that. I just don't know if I'm gonna have enough time. Um, I don't know if I'm gonna have enough time to dive into a necromancer and a druid and, like what else. But the benefit of that is the reason I won't have time is because there's an expansion. Like then I'll be playing something else, and that'll be awesome. I'll go briefly. In terms of a druid, like the unique item that kind of stood out to me was the crone staff. I like the basic attack build. I like the being able to use two basics at the same time, essentially because of it. What they did is they added the ability for it to chain, so it can chain to multiple targets now, which is already it was already powerful before, but now it seems like it's going to move into that upper echelon. I think there's something out there like that maybe Diablo needs to look at about basic attack builds as we go. The conversation that was having a little bit before about either eventually not having basics, or if everything's a basic, so you don't have to worry about generating resources. There's something about the game that feels really good when you don't have to worry about that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's a conversation for a different day. I will say I'm pretty stoked. It's almost enough to dissuade me from going into the companion build, but because I've done it already, it might be something I just dip my toe into, uh, like later on once I've tired of the companion, or if the companion build just isn't coming online, I think I could lock back in to the basic Stormclaw build, but I don't know. In other words, what about a sorcerer?
Well, so to answer your initial question, I actually went through in order because I wanted to see the mythic uniques first and then the general uniques because I was like, what did they do? And they kind of like not really a nerf, but like definitely an alteration to Tybalt's will that's going to change how I want to interact with it with the sorcerer. And Dariel's Visage got a significant buff, which is very cool. Specifically, the poison nova damage, but also the stats on it are great, including the 666% poison resist that you get on it now as implicit, which I thought was a cool flavor. I thought that they made some Shaco's even better. Shaco's even better than it was. It was already
Yeah.
obviously very good. It's even better now. So there was a lot of good changes, but overall with the sorceress, I mean, like it looks really good. Frozen Orb getting huge buffs through Fractured Winter Glass, which was already really impactful last season to creating that build and making it work. They've made some even bigger changes to that. Including given like one of the weapon implicits that you get, like possible chance to cast Frozen Orb twice is now a stat on that amulet on top of being able to roll it on your tempers, which is very cool. The Fireball uniques, Gloves of the Illuminator, the staff, Endless Rage, I think. Those look pretty neat as well too. Just some significant buffs that made it. I mean, like a good example, Gloves of the Illuminator was Fireball gloves that had attack speed rolls on them, but it was Fireball attack speed specifically, and the Fireball attack speed percent couldn't roll as high as regular attack speed. So you could get like I think it was like 6% total attack speed, whereas like normal attack speed went up to 8%. So it was like just a regular gloves roll would have more attack speed than the unique would, and that didn't make a ton of sense. So seeing them expand that, now it's like way buff beyond that is really cool. There's just it looks really good overall. But again, it's kind of like almost analysis paralysis a little bit. There's so many changes that I went in going like I want to play Chain Lightning. I haven't played Chain Lightning since the first season, or well, since preseason realistically. So I'm like, I want to do chain lightning really bad, but I'm like, oh, but frozen orbs looking chocolatey and good. Meteor's getting some significant buffs. Starfall Coronet got some changes that are really nice, and just the meteor skill in general, including increasing the size of meteors, which is also very good. And I really enjoyed playing that. They also reduced the cooldown on that helmet quite a bit too, so that looks interesting. And then you have like ice spikes. I mean, the possibility of ice spikes, which was already doing really well, like double procking because of Blue Rose, like is insane. So I'm sure that's going to have exponential. Right now, it feels good to have no idea what I want to do because there's so many good options. It seems like obviously there's going to be things that kind of show themselves to be bigger, better choices than the rest, but for now, feels pretty damn good.
It feels like very much so. Like season 5 is just picking right up from season 4. Like
Mhm.
I didn't burn out from season 4. Um, I'm still basically every day playing, and I'm still giddy for what season 5 is going to bring. That good on you, Diablo team, right? It's not easy to do that. And I'll point out, like, as we're looking into season 5, a lot of the conversation that it's come up before is like the even and odd season teams, right? Of like, oh, it's gonna be this season, so it's not gonna be good. I feel like that conversation kind of gets to be abated at this point. Like, there's so many different things moving that I don't even remember what season team is doing what, that I would hold it and like that would come in with any sort of preconceived notion. But I will say that I'm looking forward to season 5 just as much as I was season 4. I think that's a good sign moving forward.
Yeah, no, definitely agree. Especially because it's building upon the same energy. Now it's just
Yeah.
like the one downside of season 4 was it in many ways invalidated uniques. But now it's bringing uniques up to that same speed. So
Yeah, it just feels like the next step. It's Loot Reborn 0.5. But honestly, the amount of changes they've made to all the classes and items, it feels like Loot Reborn, I guess 2.0, but really it's 3.0, right? At this point, I guess it's nuts. Super excited for it for sure.
Well, I think of the perspective, if you didn't play season 1, 2, 3, or 4 and are popping in now, like Vessel of Hatred, like you're like, okay, I'm excited, but I'm not going to play this current season because it's happening already. I'll wait for the one right before because it's 2 months. It's enough time to get like caught up. It is such a different game at this point. Uh,
Mm.
I can't really point to much that I would say is the exact same at launch outside of the story's still there. I mean, granted, you do skip it, but the campaign still exists. Um, the classes
which
are the
is
same. Yeah,
yeah, I'm actually that does make me interested for the campaign. How will the campaign for the expansion work in with the
this
season?
I can answer. So I did ask that to Rod during the interview, and essentially, what you can do is you can play it straight. You could do regular 1 to 50 in the normal campaign and then go right in, or you can start a brand new character, show up in Naatu, and start there because everything's going to scale just like it was
Mm.
doing initially. It always scales to your level. So wherever you're starting, granted, it's going to seem weird. And he did make mention like you'll meet up with Narelle, which I guess maybe is a spoiler that we actually do meet up with her,
Hmm.
or maybe he was lying. I don't know. I'm not spoiling shit. He said it. So he did. He said you'll meet up with Narelle, and it's going to be weird because you will have worked with her before, and if you're starting a brand new character and you didn't play any of the story, it will seem a little off. So the experience of the story is obviously benefited by having actually played the initial campaign. which is logical because it's an expansion. But it doesn't mean that you have to, which I think is also good. That seems like a very
But do
logical
you?
thing.
But since the expansion is also the season, can you just skip the expansion campaign just to go straight into the season, or do you have to play the expansion campaign? That's the question
Believe
that I'm
I
asking.
believe you can go right into the season. Like you
Okay.
don't have to engage with the initial story of it. Because the season starts simultaneously too.
Yeah. That was my question, is how they're going to go
Yeah,
through and handle that. Yeah.
that'd be a bummer.
Yeah.
There's got to be a better
Yeah.
solution there. Maybe I'm
Because
wrong.
that is going to be one of those ones where it's just kind of weird that you would just like start as like a level 1 character directly into the expansion. Because if you wanted to like play through the entire storyline, you'd be starting the campaign and putting off your seasonal launch at the same time just to like play through it, because you're either playing through the campaign in season to then play the expansion campaign, or you're playing through the campaign again like what Nerdswords was going to do, but then you're playing the expansion on Eternal, which then robs you of your season time.
What if the seasonal quest line was the expansion quest?
That would make me that I guess that's like one of the things that would also like concern me, because think about how large the seasonal quest lines are compared to my expectations of what expansion should
Expansion
be.
should be. Yeah, agreed.
That's true. Um, but maybe this one's just the exception. For every expansion, the seasonal quest line's longer, so that you have to go through it to unlock whatever it is that you would be highlighting in that season. Why are we doing this? We we're not going to get paid. We're just giving them ideas. But I think that is a fair question. I'm not super sure. Um, I guess we just kind of have to wait and see. Okay, we're going a little long here, gentlemen. I know there are bedtimes and storms a brewing. Now, uh, any last thoughts before I will join you in softcore on Tuesday?
Just really excited for the season. Saving my PTO for the expansion launch, so I'm going to go less hard this season for sure. But definitely going to play as much as I can and go through. I'm honestly like, while I'm excited for the season, I am, and all the new loot stuff and all that stuff. I'm actually more excited to dive back into the story after a year. And really, I enjoyed that so much that I think that I'm gonna have a lot of fun taking my time through that. Yeah, I'm just excited. Honestly, Vessel can't get here soon enough, but I'm very excited for Tuesday and the new season as well.
I am doing the intelligent thing and wasting all of my PTO the week before the expansion, so that way I have no PTO left to actually take it off for the expansion. I will be able to protect like all future like major season updates and expansions based on whenever I book my vacations, because then it will immediately be the week after, because that was like season 4, and then now the expansion. So yeah, I'm getting really good at that.
You should
Um,
just like publish your calendar for people to see, and then they'll just take the week after.
Yeah,
yeah. Don't be me. Take the week afterwards. But uh, one of the things that we never even talked about is that like the leveling for season 4 was like really quick, and it seems that the leveling is now even faster because the cap for monster XP, instead of being 10 levels, is 30.
Yeah.
And you can also stack the profane mine cages multiple times, so you can be maxed out at that 30 levels just running around in hell tides and such. So we're gonna see even faster leveling times, which is both a good thing and a bad thing. The game as a whole is just speeding up. Um, but more of it you want to spend at level 100. It used to be the opposite. Getting to 100 was a grind, and it burnt out people. Now you blink and you're level 100, and so it's I guess they're finding a balance somewhere in there of what they want to go through and hit. The profane mind cage is still seasonal, It doesn't exist on Eternal; it's only season, but it is something that they're carrying over from season 4 into season 5, and that's something that I at least am excited about. That it is going to have, that ability to choose your own difficulty outside of just the world tiers.
Yeah, I mean, it will be insane. You know, I've talked about it before. Like, I got to do a casting on a Race to World First 100, and we were marveling that it got done in like 20 hours. I think that was season 1 or 2. Uh, we're under like 5 hours, I think, at this point, especially with all these changes. Because even for a non like hardcore racer, you're pushing yourself from tier 2 to tier 3 earlier. You're pushing yourself from
Mm-hmm.
3 to 4 earlier. And now, if you're getting even more XP when you're under leveled, because there were plenty of
Yeah.
times, where I was fully decked out in ancestral gear at level 55, and I could kill level 80, but it wasn't as beneficial because I wasn't getting the full XP. But now I will be. Things are going to be zooming pretty quickly. And from a hardcore perspective, despite not doing it for season 5, that might make leveling a little bit easier too. Of like, oh, well, I mean, I can get boosted up real quick, just stand out in a Helltide with 3 profane mind cages and watch the XP go. But I digress. It's going to be fun. We will see you all in Sanctuary shortly. And as I mentioned, if you got something free in the shop, let us know what you got. I'm super curious. And if anybody knows why, let me know. What's happening there? Um, why did we just get something special? And Nerdwords didn't. That seems weird too. It's
I
a
actually just need to
conspiracy.
log in. I could check after the podcast. I'll check. But I haven't logged in about a
It
week,
doesn't
so
help with my story. So Nerdwords didn't. It's
fair.
a conspiracy. See, all right. This has been great. It's so good to chat with you guys again, and we should obviously connect soon and set up another episode once the season is live and talk about how the barbarians are still ruining it for us all. But in the meantime, we'll close it out as we always do with a moo. Moo.
Moo moo.